Hello, friends. Today, Mitra and I want to talk to you about a vision for a new world and what it looks like and what is possible in terms of how we live in our homes, our accommodations, how we live in connection to nature, in connection to each other, and what is possible in terms of community. If you are someone who has a deep yearning for a greater sense of community, for more connection, belonging, or you're seeking to live in greater harmony with nature, then this episode is for you. Mitra, you have a beautiful vision, and the conversations that we've had about this new world has opened up within me possibilities that I didn't even think about before. And it's really inspiring to me. And we're at a time now where it's becoming more possible than ever to bring these visions into reality. They're no more just in the domain of dreaming, but coming into manifestation and into reality. So, to start off, the new world, what does that mean to you?
Well, I see suffering in the world. And my suffering usually stems from the world's suffering. So my question is to myself, uh, can we live differently? And I believe that we can. Actually, there is a place in every history, if you look at the history of human being, that there's almost a tipping point that there is enough of something that it needs to just pour out. And I feel that's the time or times that we're living in. And so my question immediately is, if this world is becoming not sustainable, and I see it as such, what's the next world that we want to shift into, transform into? So the new world that I see, I mean, we can look at it from so many different perspectives, but first of all, consciously and energetically is a word that we vibrate at a different level of consciousness, first and foremost. Does that answer your question, or were you asking for a more specific thing? Tell me, Ben, what are
So,
you
so what
looking
what
for?
I what I hear you saying is that, well, one, that seeing all the suffering in the world, the question arises: how can we live differently? And in order to live differently, we need to have some sort of shift in our consciousness, some sort of shift in how we see the world, how we see ourselves. And what I'm noticing you're starting to move towards is a way to do that. The question that arises in my mind next is, how do we do that? How do we create that shift in consciousness within ourselves, within our families, within our communities?
How do we do that? So there are many ways to do it. We can start with actually raising our consciousness and then looking at how we actually live together or we live, or we can change the way we live together and allow that to be a helper that facilitates our shift of consciousness. I just want to talk about an example that you and I have talked about, and that is the way we live. Where do we live and how do we live? So if you look at the cities, and believe me, I've lived in enough cities around four continents to just driving around streets, even beautiful streets, treed streets, streets that I have gorgeous homes on them, you can feel the vibration of a neighborhood. I mean, there is guarded and there is fear based and I'm protected. And I have built this beautiful home, but God forbid if you come near it because I don't know who you are and what you want to take from me. So the question is, can we live in a way that it's more communal, that it's more like we are together as a community? You are not separated from me, and our well-being is connected to each other. And that's the question that is a very practical question. I know when I say these things, Usually the answer is, "Oh, Mitra, have you listened to the news lately?" And I say, because I have listened to the news, I am in the process of creating a new world, even if it starts only in my imagination. And by the way, it's not just my imagination. We know there are projects, there are uh, things that are happening around the world that are the real beautiful start to this new world.
What I think would be great is if you can share your vision, your ultimate vision, your long-term vision of what is possible, what you see as possible. And then I'd be curious to see, how do we go from where we're at now, the way we're living now, and to start moving, taking step towards this vision. So paint us a picture first of this vision that you have.
So let me take you back to a time that you weren't born, and I was a child in Tehran and the neighborhood that we lived in. It was a simple neighborhood, and what happened there was that we were the child of the community, not just belonging to one home. So if my brother and I were playing on streets, and let's say my parents were busy or they weren't home, there was a sense of somebody is
Mm, yeah,
protecting us. There was
yeah.
a sense of like somebody would make something. I remember mothers would make something for their children. They would bring it out to give it to them, and we would get a piece too. It was just a given that, they wouldn't just give it to their own children or child. So there was that sense of I belong to the community. And then there was our families, like my father's side, my mother's side. I also belonged to that family. And so there were so many belonging. There were so many ways of connecting that I don't remember thinking about separation and segregation between people. So as a result, because those measures were there and because I felt I belonged, if I saw a child in a different neighborhood and a different person came to our school, I remember like every year we would get new students. It was never about, oh, you don't belong. I thought like everybody were safe. Everybody was good because I hadn't experienced much of segregation. And there was like a bit of, here and there, competition and playfulness. But that fear was not vibrating in my bones as I feel it is happening nowadays in what we call neighborhoods and communities. So first of all, belonging. I think that's what I'm talking about most
Yeah.
importantly. And then we can talk about inner and outer. I'm talking about inner first, but we can get into outer. But before I go there, do you do you connect to the picture that I'm saying? Because I know you probably didn't grow up in that setting and that neighborhood.
Me, I love when I hear you speaking about that, I feel that that's something that I want. That's something that I yearn for. There was a little bit of that in the neighborhood that I grew up in, a little bit. And I can see how having that creates a sense of safety, creates a sense of community, a sense of connection, and how that sense of safety and security, how that carries us actually through our whole lives, how that impacts us in our whole lives, and how we interact with others, how we create our family. And I'm just seeing such, especially nowadays, such a disconnection from what you just described. I know you have more visions about how we do that going forward. When we're talking about uh, the home, Mitra, I mean, to me, it seems like we have to redefine everything. Everything needs to be redefined. And of course, there's a path to get there. If you were to recreate a community, how would you create it?
Well, first of all, the setting that it's in, it needs to be somehow friendly towards the nature and part of the nature that it's, part of. It starts there. And then how does it interact with the environment? how does it then interact with the other homes in the neighborhood? And a sense of community that is not just, oh, we just belong here and nobody else is allowed in. Not a community in fear, because people sometimes confuse these things, that diversity with sameness. It's not that people are exactly the same as I am, or they think like me, or they look like me, but it is that I am connected to nature, and that I'm connected to me, that I'm connected to the people that live around there. So there is a sense that, I don't know, when I first went to Australia in 1980s, I remember the real estate agent showing me homes, Ben, and three times he said, and this home has a lock. And I just thought, like, why would they mention that? And then, and then I asked him, I said, what do you mean they have it? Like, every home has a lock. He said, no, this is new in this neighborhood. Nobody ever locked it. There were no locks. There were no locks on the main door of this neighborhood. I remember that. It was called Bunbury, a city in Western Australia. And they kept telling me there's a big lock on this. And I came from Tehran and Paris, and, like, there was like, and Houston. Like, what do you mean? There's a lock.
Yeah.
Of course there's a lock. But that sense that I don't need to lock. I can, but I don't need to lock the door, because, and it comes from how I connected with the world. It's not only about how the world connects with me. When I am friendly, oh, I got shivers. When I'm friendly with nature, when I'm friendly with you, my next door neighbor, when I'm friendly with me, then of course I protect myself. I'm not talking about naivete here, because people think like, I'll be like silly and not understand there is, some dangers in the world and some not good energies in the world. But that's not my assumption, the main assumption. That's not my main governing energy in life. So this place, let me tell you about this place. This place, first of all, there are many homes. I see them round for some reason. I've always done. And they're very sort of much melting into nature. And there are like homes, and then there are little round homes, and then there are big ones. One of them is like, I always dreamed about having a little guest home that has everything, but it's very small, that where my friends from around the world can come and visit without literally feeling that they're interrupting my life or our life. And then this neighborhood, or this part of the place that I live in, has a community, big community center. It used to be they called it the circles of cities or towns. So it's a place where people gather not to feel lonely.
Yep.
There's a community kitchen there that we go to celebrate, we go to mourn, we go to share, we go to meditate, we go to complain, we go to make decisions, we go to connect, we go to just be with each other. So that's the setting that I imagine that it's there. That I'm old and I'm sitting there and somebody's child is there, and there I'm talking to a 4-year-old that is not my grandchild, but somehow I connect to them as an elder of that community, that somehow I feel I want to talk to them and answer their questions and ask them questions and hear them and get their energy. And then there is then cooking and sharing and talking and breaking breads. You asked me a wrong question. I can go on till tomorrow. Please stop me and and say something.
I love this, Mitra, and I want to actually hear you continue to build on this vision, to paint a clear picture of us, of what this vision looks like. And there's the element of how we live in our homes and with our families and how we nourish ourselves. Can you go a little bit more into that and into what you see is possible and ideal there?
Possible is ideal and ideal is possible. So I don't know, as we're talking, our interview friends, how you're feeling inside of you, because I know the frightened mind sometimes interferes and stops us from imagining. But I've said this so many times. Everything that we have created started with pure imagination. Somebody thought about it, or some bodies thought about it, and that's how they were born. So I want to invite our interview friends to start imagining in their own way what is their ideal community and home. To me, it starts with self connection, and then connection to my family members, then connection to the neighborhood, then the connection to the world. And it goes on. But you see that this way of protection in survivalism, as I call it, I literally have written a book about it, and I've gone too far in the book about the imagination. But let's get practical here. The practical aspect of my imagination tells me this is a possibility. I can be connected. I can feel safe, at least in my own home. Because if you look at the relationship between family members, sometimes indicates that we are not even feeling safe within our home. I don't mean that like we're going to kill each other or, beat each other up, but energetically, we are defensive. I'm always like feeling like I have to defend something. So starting there, feeling safe there. And then, of course, it becomes easier to go out into the community. Our relationship with pets that we have domesticated. It's a very difficult subject for people to hear, but we have turned these natural animals into our toys. And then we speak about how dependent they are on us and how much they love us. But is it the true love, or is it out of need when they are not able to defend themselves and feed themselves? Of course, the relationship becomes very codependent, and in a very unhealthy setting, we can call it love. But that's not true love. The love that I see with animals, especially, is a very interactive love because we live together, because we are really part of one ecosystem. Then they're roaming around and I love them, and children go and play with them and they play with children. Whatever we have that we can share with them, we share with them. They actually become part of our community in a very protective, healthy way. But they're not my toys. They're not on leash. They're not there to serve me. We cannot do that with nature. We can't domesticate nature because then the process of domestication continues. We know whatever we start doing comes home to haunt us.
And you're talking about living in in a place that is connected to nature. Of
Yes.
course, this vision of dogs being off leash and free wouldn't make sense in the city. You're painting a picture of a community and a home that is integrated in nature where that possibility would exist and the dogs are able to roam free and come back home when they need to. We can play with them when we need to. They can play with each other. There's more freedom and there's more balance.
Yes, but that's the setting, because now technology is allowing us to work from outside of our workplaces. Technology is even with transportation. I mean, I was at a conference that they were talking about things that you can't even fathom how transportation is changing in a near future. I'm not talking about like futuristic, like, 80 years from now. I'm talking about things that are going to happen in the next few years before 2030, that transportation will be very, very easy. So I can live outside of cities and there can be less density and hence more interactions in a different way, both with each other and with nature. So what I'm saying is we can use technology to go back to nature and to a healthy living. Because really, with standing at the fork, in my view, Ben, we can really go technologically cold because technology can do that for us, or we can turn the other side and use technology to really go into a more sustainable, more friendly, more compassionate, and more healthy. Just not even use those fancy words, more healthy way of living where we were supposed to live. We are not part of nature. We are nature. We are nature. And we have separated ourselves. So yes, in that setting, of course, it's not like I'm not saying in city of New York, bring your big dogs and just let them roam around and go on people. But also, this is interesting what you said. The animals, I don't even like to call them pets because once they are free, they're not pets, they're animals. Animals are also trained by us to protect us because our fear has gone into them as well. But when animals feel safe in a natural setting, then probably their interactions with other beings will be different. I was listening to a teacher who was picturing for us a dimension that we don't know about yet. So the question was, what about savagery of nature itself and animals?
Mm,
They
mhm,
kill each other, they go for
mhm.
each other.
I love when people bring that up. It's an
And
interesting
it's a very interesting and fair
perspective.
question.
Yeah.
Yes. And the answer was your animals and your setting is such because it's reflective of your consciousness. Those animals or animals in general at a higher consciousness do not need to kill each other and go at each other and chase each other and or harm you or harm each other. They find ways to feed themselves without savagery. The same way we can find ways to eat and sustain ourselves without being too harsh. And I'm not, please let me say this because I know what we're going to hear. I'm not promoting vegetarianism or I'm saying it's bad to live like that. I'm saying, please, we need to understand that our density and lack of lightness has caused many of our habits in our everyday life. And once we become lighter in anywhere we start, let's start with accommodation, for instance, we will get there and so much fear and density is not needed. There is no need to feed it. The reason everything is challenging is because everything is so dense.
Mm.
So let's become
So
practical.
let's become practical. Let's talk about how do we get there? Because I can imagine some people are listening to this and thinking this is very idealistic. To be one with nature and then to also have a community and to not have to lock our doors and pets roam free. That sounds idealistic, but it's becoming more possible than ever now. So let's talk about this. How is it possible today, Mitra? Or let's say within the next 5 years?
Well, we talked about this. I discovered this project, and I'm sure there are many others. I became aware. I've been really interested in domes because as a sustainable way of building accommodation, I've been looking at it in New Mexico. I checked out Khalili, who was an Iranian architect that created something in California, a community of domes. And then I came across a project called Geoship, Geo ship, SHIP. And I realized that there's a whole world that these, like, I want to say young people, at least comparing to me, that have come together and brought their expertise and they're really experts with a lot of experience um, from well-known companies and famous companies. And they are building sustainable accommodation and affordable, eventually very affordable accommodation so that we don't need to harm nature in order to live in it and be part of it. And these are affordable, sustainable accommodation that has a huge sense of community in it. The idea is not just construct and leave, but to help communities come together and build communities together. So that's a very tangible, they as we're speaking, they just got their permit to build in California, which is one of the most difficult states to get permits for construction. They're hoping to get their certificate of occupancy soon. So it is possible to create this kind of community. The way we do it, we become aware of it, we become part of it, and for information and for as a way of letting everybody know, because we're talking about a project, we usually do not do that. That I know I have invested in this project because it goes home, not because I'm a big investor or that's how I earn my living, but because I believe in a project like that, and that's the place to start. That's a great place to start. But even if it's not that, let's just start by the way we feel and show up in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when you sent me the link to Geoship, you're like, "Ben, please check this out. I want you to see this." It made tangible what I thought was only a dream, only a utopic dream. What they've created, these domes, is first of all, they're so beautiful, and I felt a resonance with the dome structure, but also painting a vision of what a community like that could look like. And for the first time after I saw that, I was like, "Okay, it's possible. This is something that I see is attainable for us now." I remember the first time that you showed me what Geoship is doing, and I remember watching the video and seeing what they've created, these dome-shaped products, and the communities that they were envisioning creating with these. And I felt such a strong resonance in my body. My heart was like, "This is what I want. This is where I wanna be. This is what we need." And for the first time, I've had glimpses of living in community with nature and all of that before, but I didn't see it as a realistic possibility. And for the first time, when you showed them to me, I saw it as a possibility. And full disclosure to everyone, I also decided to participate and invest in the company. And I just so believe in the vision and what they're creating. And I really hope more companies come up with the similar vision, with creating affordable housing, with the vision of creating communities around these in harmony with nature. It's really beautiful. It's
And
really
interview friends, as you're listening, I know I sound idealistic, but Ben took it to the next degree. He went and checked it out. He
yeah.
flew there. He checked their numbers. He checked
I
their
did
construction.
serious
He had suggestions. So
yeah.
there you go. You want practical? Go to Ben and and you will see that there are, and this is not the only one. I'm sure there are so many projects. And please, if anybody knows about any interesting projects, not just housing, anything that is of importance to building a new world, please let us know because we would love to talk about them. And there are so many of these little communities on their own that they are doing it for building a better world. It's not just to make money. Of course, you do need to make money, and I'm sure they will, and I hope they will. But it's not just about that. It's not the real estate disease virus that we see amongst many communities. It's about really building communities. It's about building a new world that we all want. And now it's time to take responsibility for building it. It's not just like waiting and see what other people do.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just to build on what you shared. Yes, I I did some very serious diligence on this company because I wasn't sure if it was idealistic. When I saw it, I saw a possibility and it resonated, but I wasn't sure if how likely it is for this actually to come into reality because there's all sorts of risks and whatnot. And I was very, very, let's just say I was very impressed with what they're creating, with the momentum that they've gained. And I now really see it as a possibility. It's very tangible, like within the next 5 years, very tangible. Yeah, I'm
So that's
excited.
the new world. That's the
Yeah.
new world that I'm looking for. Starting there, I would love to live in a Geoship home in a place that, I don't know, people that are interested in what we say and what we do. And they don't need to, be exactly like us, but as long as they believe in a conscious community, I would love to hear from people and be their neighbors and help their children and cook for them and hear their stories and see what they would like to contribute. There are people who their passion is more technology, somebody is more art. I mean, I would love, oh, what is scene, Ben? I just pictured it's in the evening and I'm sitting there and I feel like painting as I normally
Mhm.
do.
Hmm.
And then there's this place, one of the places that we all have left our paintings half done. And whenever
Mm.
we want, we go there. And there's this energy of artistic creation in the room. The 5-year-old is painting, the 80-year-old is painting, the man and woman and everything in between, they're painting, and it's just a place to create art.
I love that, and I'm envisioning also, musicians in the room playing music in the
Oh,
background as they're painting. There's a
yes,
guitarist playing the guitar, someone's playing the percussion, the hand percussion. There's a piano in the room, and someone's playing the piano. Pure creativity in the moment, and everything is feeding everything, and, I love that.
I
Sign me up
know.
for that,
Well,
Mitra.
we all love that, but we need to now create it. It's really interesting, Ben, as we were creating this scene, it is what we put in our movies. If you look at like older, like well, musical sort of movies, it's exactly that. So these are our deepest wishes that people are working, somebody starts singing and somebody starts playing and somebody brings this. This is what we portray in our movies, idealistic movies. So this is what we're craving. But if we do that now, somebody will start laughing at us or they call us like, oh, no, you're not practical. We are creators. And we know that. We are always creating. The question now becomes, am I creating consciously or am I creating by default? I call it by design or by default, but I'm creating. We're creating sometimes more misery and sometimes alternative way of being that ends suffering and brings togetherness, this disease of separation that we have really, really done a good job with.
Mitra, I love the vision that you've painted for us, and I love the passion that you speak with about this. I hope to our listeners we've sparked something, or Mitra and her talking about this has sparked something in you and created some inspiration that can lead you to bringing this vision closer to reality for yourself and for all of us. And we'd love to hear from you if you have ideas that you'd like to share with us about this vision, adding to this vision and giving it more form, because the more we can do that, the more likely it is going to come to reality. Mitra, any additional closing thoughts?
I just love what you said. And I think we need to keep this imagination and creation alive and expand it. So when people add their own vision, like how do you see it? What, like I talked about painting studio, art studio. What about you added music and somebody can say the kitchen and somebody says, well, what about this? What about meditation room? Add to this vision. Tell us what else would you like to see in this new world? Let's keep this vision and imagination of the new world going alive and let's give it so many details that it's easy to imagine it. Colors, senses, how does it sound like? How does it look like? How does it taste like? How does it smell like? Engaged all the senses. Tell us what is your vision. Add it to this. It doesn't need to be different. It could be complementary. And imagine this. The question is, we're building a new world. What would you like to add to the list? What would you like to add to it? And I think that energy alone is amazing. And plus, if you know of other projects that either you're involved in or you know of, you have heard about, please let us know. Let's get this New World project going as long as we can and as deep as we can.
Amen to that, Mitra. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.